I'm Mr. Midnight Hollow, your terrifying host, and you're about to experience the chilling tale of the Montana Alpha in today's episode of Terrifying Encounters. Tonight we'll uncover a vicious predator stalking the woods, a desperate battle between hunters and beast, and the terrifying secrets buried deep within this cursed valley. If you're already part of our community, your support means the world to us. Each like, comment, and share helps uncover more stories like this, or subscribe to see what is drawn out from the darkness and revealed to the world. Now, let's begin. The pandemic hadn't yet reached its peak when Lauren decided to flee Portland. The virus hadn't paralyzed the supermarkets yet, but people's eyes on the streets no longer trusted one another. She saw fear spreading faster than the disease itself. And when her 2-year-old daughter Madison had a high fever one silent night, Lauren didn't think twice. They had to leave the city. Jack, her husband, didn't like the idea. He was more skeptical. He worked in road transportation and said all this panic was fueled by the media. But when he saw Lauren crying in the bathroom while Madison slept, her eyes red from insomnia and her voice cracking, he gave in. They packed a few suitcases, stuffed food, clothes, and toys in the back of the SUV, and drove toward the northern edge of Portland, where the neighborhoods ended and the forest began. The house was listed on a vacation rental website. 2 stories, rustic style, isolated, with a spacious lot surrounded by trees and moss. The description said, "Perfect for those seeking seclusion." That was all they needed to hear. They arrived early Friday afternoon, under an overcast sky, fog creeping down the hillside like a heavy blanket. The house looked abandoned for months. Wet leaves covered the porch, and the railing on the entrance stairs was rotting under peeling paint. "This looks like the set of a horror movie," Jack said, trying to joke. Lauren didn't respond. She was holding Madison in her arms, squeezing her tighter than usual. For the first 2 days, things seemed calm. Lauren cleaned the rooms, swept the dust-covered floors, and left the windows open to let the air circulate. Jack set up a makeshift workstation upstairs, and Madison spent her afternoons exploring the old rugs and tugging on curtains with her chubby little hands. The only problem was the silence. There were no cars passing by, no neighbors. Not even birdsong was common. Just the constant creak of the house's wooden structure and the distant snap of branches breaking in the woods. On the first real night, Jack woke up to a strange sound coming from the back of the house. It was a series of footsteps, slow, heavy, accompanied by something scratching against the floor. He looked at the clock. 3:17 a.m. He sat up in bed and listened, his eyes locked on the ceiling, his heart racing. When he went downstairs to check, armed only with a small flashlight, he found the back door locked, but there were marks on the glass window, 4 vertical scratches, as if someone had dragged their nails across it. But the strangest thing was the smell. A stench of wet animal mixed with raw meat. He stood there frozen, breathing slowly, feeling the dampness of the floor seeping through his socks. He went back to bed without saying a word. The next morning, Lauren found a footprint in the mud of the garden. It was huge, much bigger than a human's. But the shape was odd. It resembled a dog's paw, but with extended claws and a wider heel. She took a photo and showed it to Jack. "Must be a big coyote," he replied, without conviction. "Are you sure?" "We're in the middle of the woods, Lauren. Could be any animal." But it wasn't any animal. The following night, the crying began. Madison woke up a little after 2 in the morning. She screamed so hard the skin of her neck turned red. Lauren rushed into the room and picked her up. The little girl trembled and pointed to the window. Her eyes were fixed on the darkness outside. "Over there, Mommy. Over there." "What is it, sweetie?" "He's there." "Who's there?" "The hairy man." Jack appeared in the doorway and looked at Lauren silently. He grabbed the old shotgun he had brought from their apartment, inherited from his father who had died years ago, and went downstairs. He didn't see anything outside, but there were footprints again, fresher this time. They circled the house. On the third night, the sound was different. It was as if something was brushing against the wooden walls of the house, slowly circling around. Jack got up again, went downstairs with the gun, and turned off all the lights. Through the gap in the living room curtain, he saw a shadow. It was big, hunched. It walked slowly, dragging something that made a wet sound against the ground. When it passed in front of the porch, Jack held his breath. The creature had dark fur, arms too long for a human, and a head that looked deformed. Its snout protruding forward, its eyes glowing a deep, unnatural red. It sniffed the air and stopped. It just stood there, smelling. Jack knew it knew. He was being hunted. He climbed the stairs in silence and locked the bedroom door. Lauren looked at him, pale. "What did you see?" "That wasn't a coyote." The next morning, the garden was destroyed. Madison's toys were scattered in the mud, and her favorite stuffed bunny had been torn in half. There was dried blood on the fence. Jack called the police. 2 officers arrived around 10 a.m. They inspected the property, took photos of the marks, and said they might have been caused by rats or a wild dog. They promised to patrol the area, but Lauren noticed something in their eyes. They didn't believe what they were saying. One of them, an older man named Saunders, pulled Jack aside before leaving. "How long have you been here?" "4 days. Listen, I'll be honest. These woods hide things not everyone wants to see. If you've got a little kid, it'd be better to go back to the city." "What kind of things?" "I don't know. But every winter something bad happens around here." Then he left. Jack spent the rest of the day in silence. While Lauren fed Madison and tried to fake a smile, he sat on the porch with a shotgun across his lap, staring at the trees as if expecting something to come out of them. The sound of the leaves was constant. The wind blew low, damp, carrying a coldness that clung to the skin like a warning. When night fell, Lauren locked all the windows. She stuffed towels under the doors, covered the glass with dark sheets, and took Madison out of her room. They put the child to sleep between them in the double bed, with the lamp off. Only the sound of the girl's breathing filled the room. Jack gripped the gun so tightly his knuckles turned white. At 2:46 a.m., the back door handle turned. Slowly, a dry click. Then another, as if someone was trying to enter quietly. Jack aimed the shotgun. Lauren covered Madison's mouth. No one moved. The handle turned again. Then, silence. Seconds later, a loud bang. Someone, or something, slammed into the door with brutal force. The impact made the glasses in the kitchen cabinet rattle. Madison woke up screaming. "Take her to the closet," Jack said, standing up. Lauren ran. She grabbed the girl and took her to the built-in closet. She locked the door and knelt on the floor, holding her daughter, trying not to cry. Another impact. This time, the hallway window. The glass shattered. Jack heard the sound of shards falling and heavy footsteps on the wooden floor of the living room. He approached the bedroom door and locked it. The footsteps stopped. From behind the door, he heard the sound of heavy breathing. Long, as if the creature was just smelling the house, smelling fear, smelling blood. Then came the claws. They scraped the wood of the door like someone sharpening blades on stone. Slowly from top to bottom. Then, a low growl. It wasn't human, but it wasn't completely animal either. It was something in between. The door shook with a sudden bang. The wood cracked slightly. Jack aimed the shotgun and held his breath. Silence. Minutes passed. The creature moved away. From the sound, it went down the stairs. Then nothing. No breaking branches, no footsteps, just the sound of Jack's pounding heart in his ears. He opened the closet slowly. Lauren was in shock. Madison was asleep, exhausted from crying so much. They didn't sleep again that night. The next morning, the living room was destroyed. The window shattered. The couch ripped apart. Claw marks everywhere. Heavy footprints covered the floor. And in the middle of the room, there was something that made Lauren vomit. It was a deer's head, severed, the eyes still open, the tongue hanging out. But the strangest thing was the yellow ribbon tied to one of the antlers, as if someone had left a gift. Jack decided it was time to leave. They grabbed the suitcases. Lauren placed Madison in the car seat. When Jack tried to start the car, the engine didn't even turn. He opened the hood. All the wires had been bitten, torn, shredded as if chewed by teeth. Lauren collapsed. "He wants us to stay here. He's playing with us." Jack locked the house, grabbed his phone. No signal, none at all. He went upstairs and tried by the window. Nothing. The nearest cell tower had to be miles away. The fog blocked everything. They were trapped there for the rest of the day. That night, when it got dark again, Madison started crying nonstop. She kept pointing at the ceiling. Lauren held her and noticed the girl was sweating cold, her eyes rolling back. Jack searched the basement for something useful. He found an old box covered in dust. Inside were old newspapers, all dated 1997. The headline of one froze his blood. "Family slaughtered in isolated house near Forest Park. Bodies found dismembered. Police suspect animal attack, but no signs of forced entry." The house in the article was the same one they were staying in. He brought the papers to Lauren. She read in silence, tears falling as she flipped the pages, seeing black and white photos of bodies covered in sheets. The face of one officer seemed to stare directly into her eyes. "He already killed here," she said, "and he's going to kill again." That night, the howls began. Long, high-pitched, seemed to come from all directions. Jack locked the bedroom again. Lauren laid Madison on the mattress and held her close. Jack kept the shotgun aimed at the door. They waited and waited. At 3:22 a.m., they heard something heavy on the roof. The creature was on top of the house. It moved slowly, scratching the tiles. Then it crept toward the edge of the window. Jack heard the claws tapping on the glass. "He knows we're here," Lauren whispered. At that moment, the lamp flickered and went out. The house plunged into total darkness. The light didn't come back. Jack groped for the nightstand drawer, pulled out the flashlight and turned it on. The weak beam lit up Lauren's face, her eyes wide, her hands trembling, her face pale as wax. Madison was curled between them, breathing fast, her forehead drenched in sweat. The sound of claws continued. The creature was still at the window. The noise was hypnotic, rhythmic, like someone marking time before an execution. Then it stopped. Silence fell, heavy and suffocating. Jack waited. Nothing. Then came the screams. A howl erupted, closer than before, ripping through the air with a vibration that made the house floor tremble. And immediately after, a sound more human, a scream of pain. Someone, a man's voice, was begging for help. Jack grabbed the shotgun and opened the bedroom door slowly, lighting the hallway with the flashlight. He went downstairs. The house felt darker than usual, as if the shadows had grown, spreading across the walls. He reached the front door and pressed his ear against it. "Help me, please! He's killing me!" The voice came from the woods, somewhere beyond the bushes. Lauren appeared behind him, holding Madison. "It's not real?" she whispered. "It's him." Jack hesitated. "What if it's someone real? What if it's the same thing that killed that family in '97? They waited. The voice stopped. The sound of rustling spread through the yard, branches snapping. Something ran around the house, a huge shape. Too fast to be human. Jack ran to the living room window and shined the flashlight. Nothing. Madison began crying again. But this time, it wasn't fear. It was pain. Lauren looked at her daughter's neck and went pale. There were 3 thin, parallel scratches, red like fresh wounds. They weren't bleeding, but they were warm to the touch, as if they'd been made seconds ago. "That's not possible," Jack said. "She was in the room with us the whole time." Lauren clutched her daughter tightly, nearly crushing her in her arms. Tears streamed down her face. "We need to get out of this house. We need to leave now." "The car won't start. No signal. The forest's surrounded." "This isn't some random break-in, Lauren. He's hunting us, like prey." That morning, as soon as the sun rose, Jack searched the woods around the house. He wanted to confirm if it had been a hallucination, if the howls, the scratches, the screams from the forest had been a product of exhaustion. They weren't. The side fence was completely twisted. Broken trunks, ripped branches, and blood. Small drops forming a trail leading toward a clearing. He followed. He walked for about 10 minutes into the woods until the pines opened up to a small clearing. And there, hanging by the arms between 2 trunks, was a body. Or what was left of one. It was a man, or used to be. The torso was ripped from neck to navel. The intestines hung like ropes. The eyes had been gouged out and the jaw shattered. The fingers were gone, replaced by bloody holes where they used to be. Jack fell to his knees and vomited. When he got back home, he said nothing. He just went upstairs and locked the bedroom door. Lauren tried to talk to him, but he couldn't form words. He sat on the floor, his back against the wall, staring at nothing. At lunchtime, Madison refused food. She was lethargic, her eyes red, sweating. She mumbled incoherent phrases. "The man is here. He wants to play with me. He said I'm his now." Lauren cried silently. That afternoon, someone knocked on the door. Jack went down with the shotgun in hand, hesitant. "Anyone there?" A woman's voice? Young. He opened the door slightly. "Who are you?" "My name's Tara. I live nearby. I heard screams last night. I thought someone needed help." Jack studied her for a few seconds. She was alone, dressed in hiking clothes, a backpack on her shoulders. She had scratches on her arms, as if she'd run through branches. Her eyes were sunken, exhausted. "You're alone?" "Yes. My brother went into town to get gas for the generator. He hasn't come back yet." Jack let her in. Lauren watched her suspiciously but said nothing. Tara explained she knew the area. She knew the legends. That many locals avoided renting cabins in these hills between October and March. Some say it's just wolves. Others talk about cults. I've seen things. Seen eyes in the woods. Heard names whispered when no one was there. Lauren showed her the old newspapers. Tara read them silently. "This house was the scene of a massacre, wasn't it?" Jack nodded. Tara pulled a piece of paper from her backpack. It was a map. She showed them a trail leading to an old abandoned structure, a decommissioned train station deep in the woods. She said there were old radios there. If they still worked, they could call for help. "But we have to leave at dawn," she said. "That's when he sleeps." Jack looked out the window. The sun was already setting. And until then, we survive. Jack and Tara spent the last hour of daylight reinforcing doors and windows with whatever they had. Furniture, cabinets, wooden planks ripped from the basement. Lauren stayed upstairs with Madison in the bedroom, where the mattress had been pushed against the wall, beside a heavy dresser. The little girl slept restlessly, murmuring phrases softly, as if talking to someone the adults couldn't see. At 7:14 p.m., the sun disappeared completely. The sky turned dark and dense, and a cold breeze slipped through the cracks of the house. Jack turned off all the lights and sat on the living room floor, the shotgun across his lap, his eyes locked on the front door. Tara positioned herself near the kitchen, holding a hunting knife tightly. Lauren kept Madison wrapped in her arms, feeling the heat of her daughter's body weakening by the hour. The first sound came at 8:43 p.m., a dry snap of a branch breaking just outside near the porch. Then footsteps, heavy, slowly circling the house. "He's already here," Tara whispered. Jack held his breath. A second later, they heard a dull thud. The front doorknob jiggled twice, followed by a rhythmic scratching sound, like claws dragging against metal. "He's testing the weak spots," Tara murmured. "He always does this before breaking in." The windows rattled from a sudden impact. Lauren held Madison tighter. Downstairs, the glass of the side window shattered. "Living room!" Jack shouted. The creature entered. First, a shadow streaked across the wall. Then came the smell. Strong, a mix of burnt fur, blood, and decay. Tara rushed to the living room. Jack aimed the shotgun at the hallway, finger on the trigger. From the back of the house, something moved fast. A figure dashed from the kitchen toward the staircase. Jack fired. The shot sounded muffled, as if the house itself swallowed the noise. Nothing. The figure had vanished. "He's toying with us," Tara whispered. "He knows we won't last the night." Jack slowly climbed the stairs, his body soaked in cold sweat. The wood creaked with every step. At the end of the hallway, he saw Madison's bedroom door ajar. He pushed it open cautiously. Lauren was on the floor, her face covered in blood. Madison wasn't there. "Lauren!" She opened her eyes, weak but alive. There was a cut on her forehead and a bite on her shoulder. She had been dragged and thrown against the wall. He took her. Jack bolted for the stairs. Tara appeared at the end of the hall. "He's outside. I saw him leaving with something in his arms." Without thinking, Jack ran through the living room and opened the front door. The night swallowed him. The forest felt alive, throbbing. Howls echoed from all directions. Tara came right behind him. "You're insane! That's what he wants! He's luring you!" "He took my daughter." Jack ran across the yard, his flashlight trembling in his hand, shotgun slung over his shoulder. Huge footprints were visible in the wet mud. Prints from 2 legs, not a wolf, but something bipedal, massive, with claws like blades. They followed the tracks for nearly 10 minutes into the woods until they reached a clearing. In the center, Madison lay on the ground, sleeping. Untouched. Jack rushed to her and scooped her into his arms. Madison opened her eyes but didn't cry. "Daddy? The man doesn't like the light." "What man, sweetie?" "The furry one. He told me a secret." Jack scanned the area. Tara pointed her flashlight toward the bushes. "There's something there," she whispered. The creature emerged from behind the trees, almost 10 feet tall. Its body was covered in thick black fur, muscular. Its legs bent like an animal's, but its arms were long, human-like, ending in claws of pale white bone. Its snout was narrow, and its eyes burned red but seemed aware. Jack raised the shotgun and fired. The monster staggered but didn't fall. It let out a guttural growl, too sharp to be only rage. It sounded like pain, recognition. It looked directly at Madison. And then it ran. It didn't flee like an animal. It fled like something that knew it had been beaten. For now. Jack fell to his knees, Madison still in his arms. "We need to leave here, tomorrow, at dawn." Tara nodded. "Now we know where it sleeps." The day broke under a shrouded sky. The trees, heavy with dew, seemed to bend under the weight of a thick fog. Jack cleaned the dried blood from Lauren's forehead with a damp cloth, while Tara stood at the kitchen window, gripping her knife. Madison slept feverishly, her small body twitching with involuntary spasms. The pale morning light brought only brief relief. When Jack opened the back door to inspect the damage, the air carried a familiar odor, the same stench of rotting flesh that had filled the house the night before. Madison's stuffed rabbit was hanging from a branch in the backyard tree, its ears torn off. A clear message. He stepped further toward the fence. In the mud, fresh footprints, deep, circular, as if the monster had circled the house until sunrise. And in the center of the lawn, driven into the soil, lay something even more disturbing, the skeleton of a small deer. Skinned clean, ribs splayed open, and placed inside the ribcage, a single flower. "He's leaving offerings," Tara said, appearing behind him. "He's marking territory, and he's marking her." "Madison?" "He didn't come here by chance, Jack. He's after her." Lauren stood in the doorway, trembling, her shirt stained with dried blood. She spoke again. She said softly. "She said the furry man wants to take her away. She said he whispers names into her ear when she sleeps." Jack froze. "Names?" "Yes. Children's names." Tara walked inside, pulled the map from her pocket, and spread it on the table. She pointed to a spot just a few miles away. "There's a place here settlers used over a century ago. A clearing with stones arranged in circles. Some say it was for rituals. Others say it's an old indigenous burial ground. But for as long as anyone remembers, kids have been disappearing here." "And the police?" Jack asked. "They close the cases as missing persons. Most bodies are never found, and the ones they do find aren't whole." Jack squeezed his eyes shut and took a deep breath. "So this isn't just a monster. It's a curse." Tara nodded firmly. "And you're right in the middle of it." Lauren stayed quiet for a few seconds. "Madison, she hasn't been baptized. We were going to do it in the summer, but the pandemic started. Could that have something to do with this? Some people believe unblessed children are more vulnerable, unprotected. The creature senses that." Jack rubbed his face, frustration building. He had to make a decision. "We're heading to that train station you mentioned. If there's a working radio, we call for help. If not, we keep walking until we find someone." Tara nodded slowly. "But if we go, he'll follow." Jack stared at the map. "Then we make him follow where we choose, no longer where he wants." They prepared everything before noon. Jack secured Madison to his chest with a baby carrier, wrapping her in a blanket and a rain cover. The little girl was still feverish, but now her eyes were half open, alert in a strange, unsettling way. When Tara offered her an old stuffed bear she'd found in the pantry, Madison grabbed it tightly but didn't smile. Lauren carried a backpack filled with canned food, water, and medicine. Jack had the shotgun slung across his back and a hunting knife on his belt. Tara, always calm and focused, kept the folded map in her pocket and held a concealed .38 pistol she hadn't mentioned before. Before leaving, Lauren stopped at the front of the house and looked back. There was no more doubt. The walls were covered in marks. Deep scratches, long, jagged cuts, as if the creature had tried to break in through every side at once. On the window of Madison's room, someone, or something, had drawn a symbol on the fogged glass, 3 overlapping triangles. "That's a warning," Tara said, observing it. He marked her as his. They followed the trail indicated on the map, plunging deeper into the forest. The path was littered with dead leaves, broken branches, and hollow trunks that looked like they hid eyes inside. The thick vegetation muffled sound, and even with the rustling under their feet, the silence was almost absolute. No birds, no insects, nothing. "Why isn't he attacking now?" Lauren asked quietly. "Because he's waiting for the right moment," Tara replied. "He likes the night, and he likes fear. He likes watching the prey get tired." Jack quickened his pace. They had been walking for almost an hour when Madison began to whisper. She was awake now, her wide glassy eyes fixed on the trees. "Daddy, the man's hungry." "What, sweetie?" "He told me. Said he needs to eat to get stronger. Said he needs fresh meat." Jack looked at Tara, who shook her head grimly. "That's influence. He's connecting with her. I've seen this before." "What do you mean you've seen it before?" Jack asked. "When my brother was little, he started hearing voices too, talking to a hairy friend. A few days later, my mom disappeared. They found her body 2 months later, hanging from a tree. No skin. He left the ears intact, like a trophy." Lauren's stomach turned. "And your brother?" she asked softly. Tara hesitated. "He hasn't spoken since that night." They kept walking until they came across a rusted, fallen sign among the leaves. It marked the entrance to the old railway line. The tracks were covered in moss, and the abandoned train station structure appeared ahead, half collapsed, a ruin swallowed by time. As they stepped inside, a foul smell clung to the air. Rust, mold, and something else. The same stench they'd sensed for nights, damp, rotting flesh. Jack spotted an old panel on the wall with a dusty radio attached. "Think it still works?" he asked. Tara stepped closer, removing the wiring cover and fiddling with the cables. "There's still signal. If I can realign the receiver, maybe." Her words were cut off by a noise. Footsteps. Slow. Coming from outside the station. Jack raised the shotgun toward the entrance. Lauren pressed herself against the wall, holding Madison close. A figure emerged slowly, moving between the tracks. It wasn't the monster. It was a man. He staggered, arms covered in blood, shirt shredded, eyes wide with terror. "Help! He's here!" Jack ran to him. "Who are you?" The man collapsed to his knees. "He killed the others, tore them apart. Only I escaped." Tara crouched and grabbed his shoulders. "Where did you come from?" "The clearing. I was staying in a cabin with 4 friends. We heard the howls 3 nights ago. Thought it was a coyote?" "Stupid." The man turned his head, his gaze trembling. "He's not just an animal. He thinks. He enjoys it. He likes playing." Hearing this, Madison started crying. Tara grabbed Jack's arm. "We need to get out, now." "What about the radio?" "No time. He's coming." The man coughed up blood and collapsed to the side. Then came the howl, long, piercing. So close the glass cracked under the vibration. Lauren screamed. The creature burst through the sidewall, smashing the rotted wood with its body. The man on the floor didn't have time to react. It grabbed him by the back and hurled him against the metal frame. His body shattered on impact. Bones exploded like brittle sticks. Jack fired. Tara shot too. The creature was hit but didn't fall. It lunged forward, grabbing Jack by the leg and dragging him several feet before being shot again. Jack kicked hard and broke free. Tara pulled Lauren and Madison behind a pile of debris. "This way!" she yelled. They ran down a narrow staircase leading to the station's basement. It was pitch black, but Tara used the flashlight to guide them. Behind them, the creature growled, its claws scraping the walls, but it didn't follow. "He's afraid of the underground," Tara panted. "Doesn't like tight spaces," Madison whispered in Lauren's arms. "He knows we're going to escape. He's waiting." Jack was bleeding from his leg. but still held the shotgun tight. "We'll exit through the lower tunnel. It connects to the abandoned tracks. But if he comes down here, this is where we fight." Tara kept the pistol ready, her flashlight shaking. "Then we make him pay for every step." The tunnel into the old tracks was a suffocating throat of darkness. The smell of rust and mold grew stronger with each step, blending with the stench of Jack's blood dripping onto the ground. Madison had stopped mumbling now. She stared forward, wide-eyed, as if seeing something invisible. Tara's flashlight revealed the curved concrete walls, cracked and slick with moss. The only sounds were ragged breathing and their footsteps. Tara led the way. Jack followed with Madison strapped to his chest, and Lauren stayed at the rear, gripping a kitchen knife like it was her last line of defense. "How long does this tunnel go on?" Jack asked through clenched teeth. "A few miles." "But about 300 meters in, there's a fork. If it's still open, we can exit onto an old service road," Tara replied without turning. "And if it's closed—" Tara hesitated. "Then we're screwed." The flashlight flickered. The battery was nearly dead. That's when they heard it. At first, a moan, low, hoarse. It seemed to come from inside the walls themselves. Then another sound froze Lauren's blood, claws scraping against concrete. "He's inside," Jack said, stopping abruptly. "That's impossible," Tara shot back, spinning with the flashlight. "It's not impossible for him. He wants us to know he's here." The sound grew louder. Something was behind them. Close, very close. "Run!" The group started moving faster, stumbling over stones and slipping on the wet tracks. Tara's flashlight trembled violently in her hands but still carved a faint path through the suffocating darkness. Jack's breathing grew heavier with every step, the pain in his injured leg burning like fire. Lauren glanced back every few seconds, and then, during one of those looks, she saw them. The red eyes. The creature was moving with inhuman speed. It wasn't rushing. It was deliberate, precise. It used the walls to propel itself forward, claws digging into the concrete like hooks. It didn't make a sound with its feet. Only the scrape of claws. "Go!" Lauren screamed. "He's right behind us!" Madison clung to Jack's neck, her small fingers digging into his skin. For the first time, her distant, feverish stare faltered. "Daddy, don't let him take me," she whispered, her voice trembling. Jack felt something ignite inside him, fury replacing fear. Even limping, he pushed forward as fast as he could. They reached the fork in the tunnel. Ahead was a rusted iron gate, tangled with vines and held shut by a corroded chain. "Help me!" Tara shouted. Jack passed Madison to Lauren and grabbed the chain, yanking with all his strength. The metal screeched, flakes of rust crumbling away. But it wouldn't budge. Behind them, the creature growled, deep, guttural, vibrating through the walls like thunder. Tara raised her pistol and aimed at the lock. "Stand back!" 2 shots. The chain snapped. They shoved the gate open and rushed into a narrow corridor lined with dirt and roots. At the far end, a faint glimmer of light. An exit. They ran without thinking. Tara stayed behind to cover them. That's when it struck. The creature lunged out of the darkness, grabbing her from behind. The impact was so violent they both slammed into the wall, and the flashlight flew from her hands, clattering to the ground before going out. "Tara!" Jack roared. He turned back, aiming the shotgun blindly into the dark. He couldn't see anything. Gunshots echoed, 1, 2, 3. Then silence, and the sound of flesh tearing. Wet. Final. Lauren screamed. Jack fired wildly, one shot ricocheting off the tunnel walls. "We have to go, Jack." He hesitated for 2 unbearable seconds, then ran. He grabbed Madison from Lauren's arms, and the three of them stumbled down the corridor, crawling through the narrow opening until they burst into daylight. Outside, the sky was gray and heavy, the air damp with mist. They were on the side of an overgrown dirt road surrounded by towering grass and twisted trees. Behind them, the tunnel remained silent. Tara didn't come out. Lauren cried, shaking violently, while Madison sat in her arms, pointing toward the brush. "He's still there," she said calmly. He liked how she tasted. Jack stood frozen at the edge of the road, his gaze fixed on the tunnel's dark maw. Pain throbbed through his leg like a knife twisting under the skin, but the heaviness in his chest kept him rooted in place. He knew Tara was dead. That final sickening sound, flesh and bone ripped apart, left no room for hope. But it wasn't just her death. It was how the creature killed her, with fury, with purpose, as if delivering a warning. Lauren grabbed his arm. "We need to leave, now." Jack nodded silently, holding Madison close against his chest like she was made of glass. The little girl wasn't trembling anymore. She seemed numb, detached, her eyes fixed on the forest trail that disappeared into shadow. "He's coming back," she murmured softly. The dirt road stretched in both directions, barren and forgotten. There were no signs of vehicles, no power lines, no markers of civilization, just the oppressive silence of the woods on either side. "We walk," Jack said firmly. "With that leg?" Lauren asked, doubt in her voice. "I'll walk." They followed the road in silence, side by side, unsure where it would lead. Tara's map was gone, still inside her backpack back in the tunnel. Jack kept the shotgun ready, though his fingers felt numb. Lauren gripped the kitchen knife tightly, as if it was the only thing separating them from death. After half an hour, they reached a fork. One path climbed up a rocky slope. The other descended into sharp curves, winding between tall trees and deep shadows. "Which way?" Lauren asked. Jack looked up at the sky. No signs, no sounds, no wind. "Madison," he said softly, kneeling in front of her. "Which way, sweetheart?" She slowly lifted a finger and pointed downhill. "He went that way." Lauren froze. "Then we're taking the other path." Jack didn't argue. They climbed the rocky slope, every step cautious, ears straining for any sound out of place. But there was something different now. The forest was too quiet. Dead. Not even the faintest hum of insects or chirping of birds. Only footsteps. And breathing. After almost an hour, they stumbled upon an old structure hidden beneath layers of ivy and vines. An abandoned barn, its walls rotting and roof partially collapsed. Jack eased the door open slowly. Inside there were piles of dry hay and rusted tools hanging from cracked beams. But what caught their attention were the marks on the floor. Deep, circular scratches, large, deliberate footprints. "This place has been used recently," Lauren whispered. "And it might still be," Jack muttered. They decided to rest there for a while, tending to Jack's injuries. Lauren tore strips from an old shirt to wrap around his bleeding leg. Jack drank some water and lay back on the hay, trembling from exhaustion and blood loss. Madison dozed off but muttered in her sleep, her small voice distant and cold. "The man doesn't have a name. He forgot it." "What man?" Lauren asked softly, brushing her daughter's damp forehead. Madison didn't answer. Jack closed his eyes for just a moment. A sharp sound woke him. A creak from inside the barn. Not outside. Inside. Wood splintering. He sat up instantly, aiming the shotgun at the shadows near the back wall. Lauren grabbed Madison and pulled her into her arms, retreating to the farthest corner. Out of the darkness, a figure appeared. But it wasn't the creature. It was a man. Bearded, hollow-eyed, feverish. His clothes torn and stained with dried blood. He stumbled forward, his steps uneven. "Did you see her?" he asked hoarsely, his voice shaky and broken. "Who are you?" Jack demanded, pointing the shotgun. "My daughter, Madison. She was taken. He took her." Jack and Lauren exchanged a horrified look. "Our daughter's name is Madison." The man stopped, eyes glassy. "No. My Madison is 6. Pale skin, red hair. She disappeared last week. The house. It was full of blood. And he left her pillow on the stairs. But without her head." Jack swallowed hard. "You saw him?" "I saw the eyes. In the dark. He likes children, likes to play with them, but after he destroys everything." Lauren whispered under her breath, "This place is cursed." The man started laughing, but it wasn't laughter. It was dry, hollow. Then it turned into sobs. "I tried to kill myself yesterday," he muttered. "The rope broke. I think he wants me alive, to watch." Without warning, he pulled a knife from his pocket. Jack tightened his grip on the shotgun instantly. "Drop it!" he barked. "He comes every night," the man rasped, voice cracking. "Every damn night." "And tonight he's coming for you." Then he turned and walked out of the barn, disappearing into the trail beyond. Jack stepped to the door and peered outside. The man was gone, but in the dirt beneath the trees there were footprints, leading away. None coming back. The moon rose red that night. Jack watched the sky through a crack in the barn's broken roof. A thin gap between the warped boards revealed a pale, blood-stained light filtering through the mist, casting faint, sickly beams across the hay-strewn floor. The silence in the forest had changed. It was no longer just quiet. It was heavy, oppressive. It felt alive. Something invisible moved between the trees, watching, waiting. Lauren sat in the corner, tucking Madison under a torn blanket. The little girl wasn't asleep. Her wide, unblinking eyes stared upward as her lips whispered faint words, sometimes nonsensical, sometimes disturbingly clear. "He doesn't like the mother," Madison murmured suddenly, still staring at the ceiling. Lauren froze. "Who, sweetheart?" "The hairy man," Madison replied calmly. "He said his mother died screaming, and he wants all the mothers to die the same way." Jack tightened his grip on the shotgun. The wound on his leg had worsened, swollen, feverish, veins dark beneath the skin. But he forced himself upright, leaning against the rotting wooden beam. He couldn't afford to collapse. Not now. "We'll spend the night here," Jack said firmly, his voice low but steady. "If he shows up, we use the hay as bait, set it on fire, make him come to us." Lauren looked at him, disbelief in her trembling eyes. "You really think we can kill that thing?" Jack hesitated for a beat, then exhaled. "No. But maybe we can hurt him enough to get away. Or at least, give Madison a chance to get away." Lauren straightened, anger and fear mingling in her voice. "We are not leaving her." Jack met her gaze, jaw tight. "I'm not saying we will, but if it comes to that, you know what I mean." Lauren stepped closer, her face inches from his, and spoke through clenched teeth. "If he takes her, I'll come back from hell itself to get her back. Do you understand me?" Jack swallowed hard and nodded. The hours dragged on, darkness settling deep into the woods outside. The wind rattled the decaying barn walls, making the old metal chains hanging from the beams sway and clink softly. The floorboards groaned beneath them. Then came the snapping of branches. Footsteps, more than one, and then the howls. Not a single voice, but 3. One distant, one near, one terrifyingly close. "He's not alone," Lauren whispered, barely audible. Jack crept to the barn door and peeked through a gap in the wood. What he saw drained the blood from his face. 3 shadows moved between the trees, one larger, towering central, 2 smaller, faster, darting around the barn in wide circles. They weren't wolves, they weren't human, they were something in between. Deformed, grotesque, covered in dark, matted fur, their twisted bodies shifting awkwardly as if unable to decide whether to walk on 2 legs or 4. "He brought the pack," Jack muttered under his breath. Lauren grabbed Madison, pressing the little girl against the haystack to hide her. Jack backed away from the door and took position in the center of the barn, standing between his family and the outside world. "Light the torch," he ordered softly. "If they come in, we burn everything." Lauren nodded, pulling out the makeshift torch, a ragged cloth soaked in alcohol, wrapped tightly around a broken tool handle. Above them, the roof creaked. Something was walking across it. Jack raised the shotgun and aimed upward. "Stay with me," he whispered to Lauren. Then the roof collapsed. One of the creatures crashed through, splintering the wood and spraying shards across the barn. This one was smaller than the others, maybe a juvenile, if such monsters could even be called that. But it was fast. Too fast. Before Jack could aim, it slashed across his chest with a claw, ripping deep. Jack fell backward, screaming. Lauren lit the torch and hurled it into the hay. The fire erupted instantly, roaring to life. Smoke filled the air, flames devouring the dry straw. The creature recoiled, letting out a distorted, almost human scream, then leapt back through the hole it had come from. Jack struggled to breathe, blood soaking his shirt. "The other one!" Lauren shouted. The second creature burst through the side, tearing the barn door off its hinges. It charged directly at Madison. Lauren threw herself in front of her daughter, clutching the kitchen knife like her life depended on it. But there was no fight. The creature stopped, sniffed the air, its glowing eyes locked with Lauren's. And then it stepped back. It slowly retreated through the broken door and vanished into the trees. Madison's calm, tiny voice broke the silence. "She's afraid of me." The barn burned hotter, flames licking the walls, consuming the dry wood. Jack crawled toward the exit, coughing, his strength fading. Lauren scooped Madison into her arms, and together they stumbled out into the night, leaving the burning structure behind. The fire blazed high, casting violent light into the forest. That's when they saw him. The largest one. The original. The Alpha. He stood just beyond the firelight, motionless, massive. Burn marks scorched patches of his fur, but his glowing red eyes blazed like embers. He raised his head toward the sky and howled. The sound rolled through the forest like a wave of pure dread, vibrating in their bones. Jack collapsed to his knees on the gravel path, his chest heaving with pain. It wasn't just a call. It was a declaration. He knew they were alive. He knew exactly where they were, and now, burned and wounded, he was angrier than ever. Lauren ran to Jack, helping him to his feet. "Get up! He's coming back!" Jack staggered, leaning heavily on her, clutching the shotgun with trembling hands. Madison watched the woods silently from her mother's arms, her expression strangely serene. Her eyes seemed darker under the flickering firelight, absorbing the shadows around her. "Where do we go?" Lauren asked desperately. Jack looked up, scanning the trees ahead. The trail climbed toward a hilltop. "Up," he said firmly. "We need higher ground, better visibility." They moved quickly, the glow of the burning barn fading behind them, swallowed by the darkness. The forest grew quiet again, but it wasn't safety. It was anticipation. After what felt like an eternity, their legs gave out beneath them. Jack was pale, sweating, his breathing ragged. Lauren cried softly as she held Madison close. The little girl rocked gently in her mother's arms, humming softly to herself, whispering strange, fragmented phrases like a lullaby. He has no father, born alone, in the cold, in the woods, eating dead things. He's what's left. At the top of the hill, they found an abandoned lookout tower, another forgotten relic swallowed by time. Its wooden frame creaked under their weight as they climbed inside. Broken windows, mold-covered walls, and warped floorboards made the place feel fragile, but it was shelter. Jack collapsed in the corner, barely conscious. Lauren dragged a fallen beam against the entrance, blocking the door. "Will this hold?" she asked, breathless. "For a little while," Jack rasped. Madison sat by a broken window, staring blankly into the endless blackness of the woods below. "He knows this place," she whispered suddenly. "He used to sleep here, a long, long time ago." Lauren knelt beside her. "How do you know that, sweetheart?" "He told me." Lauren's lips trembled. "Why does he talk to you?" Madison turned her head slowly, her dark gaze locking on her mother's. "Because he remembers me," she said softly. "He said he can smell me, and he's met someone like me before." Jack stirred faintly, forcing his eyes open. "What do you mean, like you?" "A little girl," Madison murmured. "Just like me. She tried to run, but he caught her, and then he ate everything except the heart." Lauren's breath hitched. "Madison, do you think he wants to do that to you?" Madison hesitated. "I don't know," she said finally. "Sometimes it feels like he wants to protect me." Silence. Jack pushed himself up, gritting his teeth through the pain. "This isn't just an animal," he said. "It's a ritual. He doesn't kill because he has to. He kills because it's a story." Lauren's voice cracked. "Then we break the story." Jack pointed toward the horizon, where the first pale light of dawn touched the distant treetops. "Sunrise," he whispered, "almost there." "And if he comes before then?" Lauren asked. Jack loaded the shotgun, his jaw set. "Then we take him with us." Not long after, as the pale dawn began bleeding into the horizon, the sound returned. But it wasn't howls this time. It was breathing, close, heavy, wet. The old wooden stairs of the lookout tower groaned under the weight of something climbing slowly. Lauren rushed to Jack's side. "He's coming up," she whispered, her voice breaking. Madison remained seated on the floor, unmoving, her small hands resting on her knees. Her expression was blank, distant, as if she wasn't truly there. "He wants to come in," she said softly. "But he doesn't want to destroy everything. He wants us to feel it first." Jack aimed the shotgun at the door, his sweaty finger resting on the trigger. A scratch, another. Silence. Then the handle turned. Lauren screamed. Jack fired. The door exploded off its hinges and darkness poured in with it. It was him. The original, the alpha. Enormous, bleeding, burned, but more savage than ever. He lunged straight at Jack, claws slashing across his chest in a single brutal swipe. Jack crashed to the floor, coughing blood, his body spasming from the impact. Lauren grabbed the kitchen knife and hurled herself at the beast, stabbing it deep in the side. The creature roared, spinning, and slammed her against the wall so hard the entire tower shook. The warped wooden boards creaked and groaned as dust and splinters rained from above. Then it turned toward Madison. It advanced slowly, growling low, saliva dripping from its jagged teeth. But Madison didn't move. She stood and looked straight into its eyes, unblinking, unafraid. "You remember me?" she said calmly, her voice eerily steady. The creature froze. Its massive chest heaved as it sniffed the air. Madison reached out her tiny hand, You don't have to do this again." The monster hesitated. Its growl faltered, vibrating like a trapped sound. Lauren dragged herself across the floor, vision blurred, blood trickling from her head. "Sweetheart, move away from him." The alpha let out a strange sound. Not a roar, not a growl, something else. Almost mournful. And then, light. The first rays of the sun broke through the treetops and spilled across the tower floor, touching the beast's matted fur. It recoiled instantly, snarling as smoke rose from its scorched skin. It gave one last guttural roar filled with pain and something deeper, something old. Then it leapt through the shattered window and disappeared into the trees. Silence fell over the forest. For the first time in nights, there were no howls, only the shallow gasps of survivors. Jack lay sprawled on the floor, his shirt soaked with blood, his breathing ragged. Lauren pressed a torn piece of cloth against his chest, her trembling hands stained red. Madison sat quietly by the broken window, gazing into the swaying treetops as if nothing had happened. Her face was pale, serene, almost peaceful. "We need help," Lauren whispered, choking on her own breath. "The road," Jack croaked, forcing the words through clenched teeth. "It goes down the hill." Lauren looked at him, tears filling her eyes. She knew she couldn't carry him far, and Madison, still feverish, wouldn't survive another endless trek through the woods. That's when they heard it. An engine, low, distant, real. Lauren staggered to the open window and peered down the slope. A military jeep crawled up the dirt road, tires grinding against loose gravel. Its headlights cut through the fog, and 4 men sat inside, armed, armored, their movements precise and controlled. The vehicle stopped near the base of the tower. The oldest man stepped out first, gray hair, scar across his face, a presence both commanding and grim. He raised his hand slowly when he saw Lauren. "You're the survivors?" he called out. Lauren nodded weakly, her throat tight with relief. "My husband, upstairs. He's hurt." The men climbed the stairs fast, their boots pounding the old wooden steps. 2 of them immediately went to work on Jack, unpacking a medical kit and applying heavy compresses. The scarred man studied Madison in silence. "She's the one, isn't she?" he said at last, his voice low, controlled. Lauren stiffened. "What are you talking about?" "The marked child. The last on the list." Lauren pulled Madison closer, shielding her instinctively. "Who are you people?" "Hunters," the man replied flatly. "But not the kind you're thinking of. We go where the government won't, where the police pretend nothing's wrong, where the screams get swallowed by the trees." Jack coughed, weak but conscious. "You knew," he rasped, blood staining his lips. The man nodded grimly. "We've known for decades. That thing you saw, it's been here longer than us. Bound to this land, bound to blood, drawn to children unclaimed by blessings." Lauren's voice cracked. "Madison isn't baptized!" The man's jaw tightened. "That's why he smells her. That's why she hears him." Lauren glanced down at her daughter, clutching her tiny shoulders. Madison was staring at the scarred man, silent, her expression unreadable. "She's connected to him now," the man said quietly. "Whether you like it or not." Madison turned her gaze to the window, staring into the fog-draped forest beyond. Her small voice was soft, almost distant. "He's not gone." The scarred man's expression darkened, his jaw tightening as he glanced at Jack and Lauren. "No," he said grimly. "He isn't gone. We've wounded him. But that thing doesn't die easy." Lauren hugged Madison tighter, holding her as if she could shield her from an invisible force creeping in through the walls. "What do you want from us?" she asked, her voice sharp, trembling. The man's cold gray eyes met hers. "We came to set the trap," he said. "We need bait." Jack pushed himself up against the wall, coughing hard, his chest still bleeding beneath the makeshift bandages. "No," he rasped. "Not her." The man stepped closer, his heavy boots creaking against the warped wood of the lookout tower floor. "She's already marked," he said evenly. "You saw the scratches. You know what he wants. You want this to end? We end it on our terms, or he keeps hunting until there's nothing left of you to protect." Lauren shook her head violently, tears filling her eyes. "She's 5 years old." The scarred man's voice didn't rise, but the weight of his words crushed the air in the room. "She's the only reason he'll come to us. The only way to kill him is to make him believe he's already won." Jack gritted his teeth and looked directly at him. "Fine," he said hoarsely. "Use me." The man's gaze softened slightly, but he shook his head. "He doesn't want you." He turned to Madison, who sat silently on the floor now, clutching her stuffed bear to her chest. Her expression was unreadable, but her dark eyes seemed older, deeper, as though something else had moved in behind them. Jack slammed his fist against the wall, grimacing from the pain. "I said, use me!" Lauren knelt beside Madison, stroking her daughter's damp hair, whispering, "It's okay, baby. Mommy's here." The scarred man studied them for a long moment before finally stepping back. "You don't have to decide now," he said flatly. "But decide before nightfall, because when the sun goes down, he comes back. And next time, he won't hesitate." He signaled to the other men, and they moved quickly, unpacking equipment from their bags, heavy coils of barbed wire, strange cylindrical sensors, canisters of accelerant, and what looked like improvised flamethrowers. Lauren whispered sharply to Jack, "We can't trust them." Jack's eyes flicked to the scarred man, watching as he walked the perimeter, planting sensors into the dirt. "I don't," Jack said softly. "But if they can hurt him, we need them." The hunters worked methodically, transforming the area around the tower into a kill zone. Stakes were driven deep into the ground. Wires stretched taut between trees, nearly invisible against the mist. Small barrels of accelerant were buried beneath branches, ready to ignite. By late afternoon, everything was ready. Madison sat by the base of the tower, tracing small shapes in the dirt with her finger. Her lips moved silently, as though whispering to herself. Jack crouched beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "What are you saying, baby?" Her dark eyes met his. "I'm asking him not to come," she whispered. Jack's heart clenched. "Will he listen?" Madison shook her head slowly. "He's already on his way." The scarred man approached, his rifle slung across his chest, his face drawn tight. "She's right," he said. "Sensors just triggered half a mile out. He's moving fast." Lauren grabbed Madison and pulled her close, panic swelling in her chest. "We need to get out of here," she snapped. Jack shook his head. "If we run, we die. If we hide, we die. The only chance we have is here." As if in answer, a loud beep echoed from the nearest sensor. Then another, and another. The scarred man raised his fist, signaling his team into position. "This is it," he muttered. The forest went silent. Not quiet. Silent. Even the wind stopped. Then a sharp snap of wood came from deep in the trees. "He's close," one of the hunters whispered, sweat dripping down his temple. A low growl rolled across the clearing, rumbling like distant thunder. Madison buried her face in Lauren's shoulder, whispering, "Don't let him take me, Mommy." Lauren kissed the top of her head, holding her tighter, rocking her gently. Jack's grip on the shotgun trembled, but his jaw stayed locked, his breathing measured. Then, without warning, one of the sensors exploded. A second later, A scream cut through the clearing. One of the hunters, the youngest, vanished into the trees, dragged so fast there wasn't even time to fire. A spray of blood painted the mist. "He's inside the perimeter!" someone shouted. The forest erupted into chaos. Gunfire roared. Sensors blared. Men screamed orders over the thunder of weapons. The shadows moved faster than bullets, crashing through trees, tearing into flesh. Jack pulled Lauren and Madison behind an overturned barrel as one of the hunters flew past them. His throat shredded open, landing limp and lifeless in the dirt. Another scream. Another body. The Alpha burst from the fog, massive and terrifying, its burned fur patchy, its glowing red eyes locked directly on Madison. Jack raised the shotgun and fired, the blast echoing like thunder. The creature staggered, but kept coming. The scarred man roared, "Now!" Two hunters ignited the flamethrowers, sending walls of fire roaring across the clearing. The Alpha recoiled, snarling, but didn't retreat. Then Madison spoke, her tiny voice cutting through the chaos. "Stop." And impossibly, it did. The monstrous head turned toward her, its chest rising and falling with deep, ragged breaths. For a moment, the forest froze. Everything waited. The Alpha stood frozen in the clearing, smoke curling from its burned fur, its ragged breath echoing like a broken engine. Everyone stopped moving. No gunfire, no shouting, no flames. Only Madison's small voice had power now. "Please," she whispered, stepping forward despite Lauren's desperate grip on her arm. "Don't hurt them." Lauren pulled her back sharply. "Madison, no!" But the creature lowered its head slightly, massive claws digging into the wet dirt. It didn't advance, didn't retreat. It simply watched her. The scarred man raised his rifle slowly, whispering to his team, "Hold your fire." One of the younger hunters hissed back, "Are you crazy? This is our shot." "Not yet," the scarred man muttered. Madison kept walking, breaking free from Lauren's hands, her little shoes sinking into the damp soil. Jack struggled to get up, blood still seeping from his bandages, but he couldn't move fast enough to reach her. The air grew heavy, oppressive, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. Madison stopped just a few steps from the Alpha. She reached out her tiny hand, palm open. "It's over," she whispered. "You don't have to do this anymore." For a moment it seemed as though the beast understood. Its breathing slowed. Its enormous head dipped closer, almost touching her hand, when a single shot exploded through the clearing. The bullet struck the Alpha square in the shoulder. The creature howled, a sound so deep and violent it rattled the trees. Madison screamed, falling backward. Lauren caught her midair, dragging her behind the nearest log as chaos erupted once again. The hunters opened fire, gunfire tearing the silence apart. The Alpha roared and lunged, slamming one of the men into a tree so hard his spine snapped with an audible crack. The scarred man shouted orders. "Flamethrowers! Drive it back! Now!" Two massive bursts of fire roared to life, painting the clearing in waves of orange and gold. The Alpha stumbled back, smoke curling off its burned fur, but it didn't retreat. Instead, it charged straight through the flames, ignoring the pain, slamming into the second line of hunters with brutal force. Bodies flew. Screams split the air. Jack fired his shotgun, the blast hitting the beast's ribs, but the creature barely flinched. Lauren clutched Madison tightly, shielding her eyes from the horror unfolding around them. "Why won't it die?" One of the hunters shouted, voice cracking. "It's older than us," the scarred man roared back. "Older than these woods." The Alpha slashed through another hunter, tearing him apart before spinning and vanishing into the fog-shrouded tree line. Silence. For a few moments, no one moved. Then Madison opened her eyes. "He's not done," she whispered. "That wasn't him leaving. He's circling." The scarred man cursed under his breath. Set the secondary traps, he ordered his men. Everyone else, reload and regroup. We finish this before nightfall. The hunters moved fast, their boots sinking into the wet earth as they prepared the secondary traps. Razor wire nets were strung between trees, hidden beneath layers of fog and leaves. Small metal stakes were driven deep into the ground, connected to more sensors and explosive charges. Jack sat against the tower wall, clutching his side, his breathing ragged. Lauren knelt beside him, carefully checking the soaked bandages. "You've lost too much blood," she whispered. "You can't keep fighting." Jack grabbed her wrist, his grip trembling but firm. "If we don't fight, we die," he rasped. "All of us." Lauren's lips quivered, but she didn't argue. She turned her gaze to Madison, who sat quietly on the ground, hugging her knees and staring into the fog. "She hasn't said a word," Lauren murmured. "She knows," Jack said hoarsely. "She feels him. Somehow, she's connected to it." Before Lauren could respond, the scarred man approached, his expression hard as stone. "Everyone needs to stay inside the tower until we force him into the traps," he ordered. Jack frowned. "That's not gonna work." The scarred man narrowed his eyes. "And why's that?" "Because he's not stupid," Jack said. "He's testing us, watching us. If we wait, he'll come from where we least expect." The scarred man crouched down, his cold gray stare locking onto Jack's bloodshot eyes. "Then tell me," he growled, "why hasn't he finished us already?" Jack hesitated. He glanced toward Madison. "Because," he whispered, "he doesn't want us. He wants her." Lauren instantly stepped in front of Madison, her arms spread wide. "You're not touching her," she snapped. The scarred man's jaw tightened. "Nobody wants to hurt the kid," he said quietly. "But if we're going to kill this thing, we have to understand why it's after her." Lauren shook her head violently. "I don't care why. She's not bait." Madison finally looked up, her small voice cutting through the tension. "He's angry," she said softly, "because you burned him." Everyone froze. Jack stared at her. "Madison, how do you know that?" She hugged her knees tighter, burying her face. "I hear him," she whispered. "When it's quiet. He's inside." The scarred man cursed under his breath and stood, barking orders to his men. "Double the perimeter! No blind spots!" Suddenly, a loud clang echoed through the clearing. One of the metal stakes had been ripped from the ground. The hunters spun toward the sound, rifles ready, hearts pounding. Another clang, another stake, gone. The sensors screamed to life, blaring in sharp overlapping tones. "He's breaching the traps!" one of the men yelled. Then, silence. Complete, suffocating silence. A single drop of rain hit the metal barrel beside Jack, and he flinched instinctively. Then came the growl. Low, deep, resonant. It seemed to rise from the earth itself, vibrating through their bones. The scarred man raised his hand. "Eyes up! Weapons ready?" From the tree line, glowing red eyes emerged, slowly, deliberately. The Alpha stepped into view, larger than before, his burned fur steaming in the cold mist. His lips peeled back in a silent snarl, exposing rows of jagged teeth slick with saliva. One of the younger hunters panicked and fired a shot. The bullet hit the Alpha's chest, and the creature didn't even flinch. It moved so fast no one saw the strike. One moment the hunter was standing, the next his body crashed into the tower wall, snapping his neck instantly. Lauren clamped her hand over Madison's mouth to keep her from screaming. Jack raised his shotgun, but the scarred man grabbed his arm. "Not yet," he whispered. "Wait for my signal." The Alpha paced slowly, deliberately sniffing the air, its gaze locked onto Madison again, unblinking, predatory. "Now!" the scarred man roared. 3 hunters triggered the explosive charges. A thunderous boom tore through the clearing, the shockwave rattling the tower and tearing branches from the trees. Smoke swallowed the alpha, but when it cleared, the beast still stood. Wounded, bleeding, enraged. It let out a howl so powerful it shattered glass and made the earth tremble beneath their feet. Madison clutched Lauren's arm, her eyes wide with terror. "He's not going to stop," she whispered. "Not until one of us is gone." The explosion left the clearing smoldering, smoke curling from broken trees and shattered earth. The alpha had disappeared into the fog again, but everyone knew it wasn't over. The scarred man's voice cut through the ringing in their ears. "Check ammo. Check wounds. We're not done." Jack dragged himself upright, one hand pressed against his side. Lauren tried to help him, but he waved her off. "I said I'm fine," he hissed through gritted teeth. "We need to move." Madison stood in silence, clutching the edge of Lauren's jacket, her tiny frame trembling. From deep within the woods, a faint growl rumbled. "He's close," Madison whispered. The scarred man turned to his team. "Split into 2 groups. Force it toward the river. We'll cut him off there." One of the younger hunters protested, "What if it circles around?" "Then it circles straight into our crossfire," the scarred man snapped. Jack loaded fresh shells into his shotgun and stepped forward. "I'm coming with you." The scarred man studied him for a moment before giving a short nod. "Stay close," he said. "You slow us down, I leave you behind." Lauren grabbed Jack's arm. "You can't—" But Jack shook her hand off gently. "I have to." The hunters moved into formation, advancing through the damp underbrush. Every twig snap, every shifting shadow pulled their nerves tighter. Above, storm clouds gathered, dark and heavy, swallowing the moonlight. Madison and Lauren stayed behind with 2 guards at the tower, watching the hunters vanish into the mist. "Do you think they'll kill it?" Madison asked softly. Lauren hesitated, looking down at the trembling girl. "I don't know," she admitted, "but they'll try." Deeper in the forest, the hunters found signs of the alpha's passage: shredded bark, crushed earth, enormous paw prints pressed deep into the mud. "It's moving fast," one of them muttered, scanning the tree line nervously. "Good," the scarred man replied. "Means it's scared." But Jack frowned, his gut twisting. "No," he whispered. "It's leading us." Before anyone could respond, a deafening roar erupted from behind. The alpha burst from the fog, slamming into the rear hunter and throwing him 30 feet into a tree. His body fell limp to the ground. "Contact! Contact!" the scarred man shouted. Gunfire erupted, muzzles flashing in the gloom. The alpha darted between trees with terrifying speed, its claws tearing into one hunter after another. Jack fired, the shotgun blast grazing the beast's shoulder. The creature snarled, spinning and leaping at him, but the scarred man shoved Jack out of the way, opening fire point blank. Bullets tore into the alpha's side, forcing it back a step, just one step. It swiped, claws slicing clean through the scarred man's rifle, splintering the metal like paper. "Fall back! Toward the river!" he roared. They ran, boots pounding against wet soil, splashing through shallow streams as thunder rolled overhead. Behind them, the alpha's howl echoed, closer and closer. The river came into view, dark and swollen from the recent rains. The hunters formed a semicircle along the bank, weapons aimed. "Hold!" the scarred man commanded, breathing hard. "Let it come to us!" Branches cracked, leaves trembled. And then silence. Jack's finger tightened on the trigger, sweat dripping from his brow. Suddenly, The Alpha exploded from beneath the water, launching itself onto the bank with impossible strength, knocking 2 hunters into the current instantly. The others opened fire, bullets ripping into the beast's flesh, but it only enraged the creature further. The fight had begun. The riverbank became a battlefield. Water sprayed into the air as the Alpha crashed into the hunters' formation, scattering them like leaves in a storm. Jack dove to the side just in time to avoid the creature's claws. The scarred man fired 3 shots in quick succession, each one tearing through muscle and bone, but the Alpha only roared louder, more furious than ever. "Keep firing!" he bellowed. The hunters obeyed, unloading everything they had. The deafening roar of gunfire mixed with the beast's earth-shaking howls. 2 hunters flanked the Alpha from behind, attempting to pin it between the river and their rifles. But the beast sensed their move. It spun with blinding speed, grabbing one of the men by the throat and hurling him into the river with a strength that defied reason. The second hunter tried to retreat, but a single swipe from the Alpha's claws tore his chest open, sending him crumpling to the wet ground. Jack pulled himself behind a fallen log, reloading his shotgun as fast as his trembling hands would allow. "Jack!" Lauren's voice echoed from the tower. She and Madison were watching from a distance, tears streaming down Lauren's face. "Stay back!" Jack shouted, but his voice was drowned out by another roar. The Alpha turned toward the sound of her voice. Its glowing red eyes locked onto Madison again. Jack's heart sank. "No," he whispered, scrambling to his feet. "Not her." The scarred man saw it too. "Protect the girl," he barked, firing his last magazine at the beast. The Alpha lunged forward, using its massive claws to propel itself across the muddy bank with terrifying speed. Madison clutched Lauren's arm, frozen in place as the creature closed in. At the last possible second, one of the hunters triggered a remote detonator. Boom! An explosion ripped through the earth beneath the Alpha, sending dirt, water, and fragments of wood spraying in all directions. The beast roared, stumbling backward, smoke rising from its burned hide. "Now!" the scarred man yelled. "Hit it with everything we've got!" A storm of bullets and fire engulfed the clearing. The Alpha dropped to one knee, its breath ragged, its body trembling. For a moment, silence fell. And then, it stood again, blood dripping from its jaws, its wounds smoking, its chest rising and falling like a furnace. Jack stared in disbelief. That should have killed it. The scarred man shook his head slowly. "This isn't just any wolf," he muttered. "It's something else." Madison stepped forward, despite Lauren's desperate grip. "It's not done," she said softly. "He won't stop until we're all gone. Or he is." As the rain poured harder, soaking the blood-stained earth, the Alpha released a howl so powerful it rolled across the entire valley, carried on the storm. And everyone knew. The real fight was only beginning. Rain poured relentlessly, soaking the hunters as they regrouped along the riverbank, their breathing heavy and strained. The Alpha had retreated into the shadows again, but everyone knew it wasn't running. It was waiting. The scarred man wiped the water from his face and barked orders. "Reset the traps. Reinforce the perimeter. Nobody leaves this area until we know where it is." Jack crouched behind a broken log, trying to steady his shaking hands while reloading his shotgun. Lauren rushed to his side, pulling Madison close under her arm. "We have to get her out of here," Lauren pleaded, her voice trembling. Jack shook his head. "If we move, we expose her." Madison stared out at the fog-covered trees, silent, but her eyes were wide with fear. Then she whispered, barely audible, "He's not gone." Jack turned to her sharply. "Where is he?" Her small hand pointed toward the far ridge, where a line of dark pines cut through the mist. Before Jack could warn anyone, An ear-splitting howl ripped across the clearing, shaking the trees and rattling their bones. "He's coming," Madison said softly. The scarred man raised his rifle. "Positions! Now!" The hunters took cover behind rocks, fallen logs, and thick trees, weapons ready. Then, from the shadows, two glowing red eyes emerged. The Alpha stepped forward, steam rising from its wounds, breath curling into the cold night air. Its massive claws dug into the wet earth as it lowered its head, muscles coiled tight. "Open fire!" the scarred man roared. A hail of bullets ripped through the air, but the Alpha moved like a phantom, weaving between trees, its speed inhuman. It leapt into the formation, sending two hunters crashing to the ground instantly. Jack fired his shotgun at point-blank range. The blast hit the Alpha's shoulder, spinning it sideways, but it recovered instantly, slashing at him with a swipe that would have split him in two if he hadn't rolled beneath it. "Keep hitting it!" the scarred man shouted, firing until his rifle clicked empty. Suddenly, Madison screamed. The Alpha had locked eyes with her again. It bolted toward her, ripping through branches and mud. Lauren tackled Madison to the ground, shielding her with her body as Jack scrambled to reload. The scarred man grabbed a flare from his belt and hurled it directly at the Alpha. Whoosh! The flare exploded against its chest, engulfing the beast in a burst of red fire. The Alpha shrieked in pain, staggering back, its burned fur smoking. "Now! Take the shot!" the scarred man bellowed. Two hunters launched harpoons attached to steel cables. The spears pierced the Alpha's ribs, embedding deep into its flesh. With a synchronized pull, they dragged the cables taut, forcing the beast onto one knee. "Hold it!" the scarred man roared. "Don't let go!" The Alpha struggled violently, its strength almost tearing the cables apart. Jack stepped forward, aiming carefully. "Jack, don't!" Lauren shouted, but he didn't hesitate. He fired. The shotgun blast slammed into the Alpha's chest, spraying blood and bone. The beast roared louder than ever, breaking free of one cable, grabbing a hunter, and hurling him across the clearing like a rag doll. Madison screamed again, clutching her ears as the Alpha released a howl so deep and primal, it silenced the storm itself. And in that moment, everyone realized the horrifying truth. The Alpha wasn't just fighting to survive. It was hunting them. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the battlefield for a brief second. The Alpha stood on a fallen oak, silhouetted against the storm, blood dripping from its claws, its red eyes glowing brighter than ever. The scarred man gritted his teeth, his soaked uniform clinging to his body. "This ends tonight," he muttered. Jack tightened his grip on the shotgun, moving closer to Lauren and Madison, shielding them with his body. "Get her out of here," he whispered urgently to Lauren. "No," she protested. "Not without you." The Alpha growled, low and deep, before leaping from the oak like a predator descending upon its prey. "Fire!" the scarred man bellowed. Every remaining hunter unleashed their last magazines. The night lit up with muzzle flashes, the sounds of gunfire echoing across the valley. The Alpha charged directly into the hail of bullets, its massive body jerking under impact, but never slowing. One hunter tried to flank it from the side, but the Alpha spun mid-leap, grabbing him by the waist and slamming him headfirst into the ground with a sickening crack. "Fall back!" the scarred man ordered, but Jack ignored him, stepping forward instead. "Jack, no!" Lauren screamed. The Alpha lunged at him, but Jack dove under its swing and shoved his shotgun beneath the beast's ribs, pulling the trigger. Boom! The shot exploded inside its body, sending the Alpha crashing to the ground in a howl of agony. But it wasn't dead. Not yet. The creature rolled to its feet, bleeding heavily, breathing raggedly, yet somehow stronger, more enraged. "It's adapting," Madison whispered softly, her voice trembling. The scarred man tossed Jack a fresh shell. "We finish this together." Jack nodded, reloading. the rain running down his face. As the alpha roared and charged again, the scarred man and Jack sprinted forward, firing simultaneously. One blast hit the creature's throat, the other, its heart. The alpha staggered, claws tearing grooves into the wet earth as it tried to stay upright. "Stay down!" the scarred man growled, stepping forward. But the beast made one final leap, claws extended, jaws wide. Boom! A single harpoon, launched from the ridge, pierced straight through its chest. The alpha collapsed mid-air, crashing lifelessly into the mud, its glowing eyes fading to black. Silence fell over the battlefield. The hunters lowered their weapons slowly, breathing heavy, rain still hammering down. Jack fell to his knees, staring at the motionless body. "It's over," Lauren whispered, pulling Madison close. But Madison shook her head, her small voice barely audible over the storm. "No, it's never over." Somewhere deep in the valley, an answering howl rose in the distance, and everyone froze. Jack's fight in the cursed forests of Montana is brutal proof of how far humans will go when faced with an ancient predator. But this is only the beginning. A new alpha era has been unleashed, and we'll be here to uncover what rises from the shadows next. Like this video if you felt the tension of the hunt, and comment below which moment made your heart race the most. Share it with someone who still believes small towns and dark forests are safe. They need to know the truth. And if you dare to walk deeper into the darkness, subscribe to Mr. Midnight Horror and turn on the bell so you'll never face the hunt alone again.